What's up guys? Today I want to take a moment and talk about Tesla's quality control. Why is it that Tesla's quality control actually sucks, or why does Tesla have so many panel gaps? Because the car seems to be built really well, but why are there just so many quality control problems that everyone else complains about, especially when they get like a new car, for example, the new Model Y. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and if you haven't already, like and subscribe because that really helps the channel in a big way. Alright, let's get right into it. So the Model Y has a lot of quality problems that you might have actually seen. A lot of other YouTubers have actually published their videos about how the Model Y has so many different issues, has panel gaps, has missing paint, has pretty much every issue that any car at that price range really shouldn't have. And generally you would think that, oh my gosh, that's a very badly built car and maybe you shouldn't buy one. But the reality is, the car is built really well. Like under the skin, the car is built like a tank. It's not flimsy, it's built with very good materials, it's built with very good processes and materials and manufacturing. And basically, all the problems that you really see are just on the outside. So maybe like missing paint or like blemishes or swirl marks or maybe some panel gaps that you might actually see, which I personally don't really care about unless they're impacting the performance or usability of the product. Like say the hatch, that was actually a big problem. The rear lift gate, that wasn't actually closing properly on some of those models. Some Model Y owners actually had that issue. Now that is a problem that I would not want on the car, but if you're just talking about simple panel gaps, I'm totally okay with it. And most of the panel gaps aren't really misaligned that badly. Like if you really take a fine-tooth comb and they look misaligned, maybe you'll find some defects. But other than that, they look pretty good. And the one reason why it seems as though that Teslas are just built terribly is because of survivorship bias. Now I'm going to use the example of World War II planes. Basically what happened was planes were returning and they had a lot of bullet holes in them, but a lot of planes weren't returning, and basically they wanted to add shielding to where the planes actually got hit so that they can actually return. So now the obvious thought is, wherever the planes that returned got hit, you would add shielding. But that is not what you would actually do. That is survivorship bias. That means whatever you see is not what you're actually supposed to do. Whatever may seem logical is not what you're actually supposed to do. Basically, all the returning planes actually got hit in like their wings, and all those planes actually returned. So your logical thing would be, okay, let's add shielding onto the wings. More planes would return. But that's not what they did. That's not what you were actually supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is add shielding to other parts of the plane where it did not get hit. The reason for that is all those planes did not return, which means that you want to add shielding where the planes did not return, which is usually in the engine area and whatever, maybe the passenger cabin or whatever. You would add shielding there so that if a plane does get hit over there, it does not actually impact the engine or doesn't hit the engine, and basically the planes can then return. Whereas adding the shielding at the wings where all those planes were returning anyways, it doesn't really create any benefit. So that is why the survivorship bias comes to play. Now, why am I actually talking about the survivorship bias? Well, basically, you see all these big YouTubers, they usually get the car beforehand because they generally have a following already and they generally are more upfront about it. And basically, because of that, they want to get the car first and make reviews on it because they know it'll overall help their channel. And because of that, they get a lot of views in the beginning. And because they get a lot of views in the beginning of their channel, or basically in the beginning of the production or the release of the Model Y, what happened was everyone started talking about the quality control problems. And because those were the very early builds, like the very, very early builds, basically when they're ironing out all the defects and whatnot, a lot of those people, a lot of the people who actually had big YouTube channels, like Ben Sullins, for example, they had those cars that were built so early and had quality control issues, not manufacturing defects, but quality control. Now, obviously on such an expensive car, you're not actually supposed to have any quality control issues, but things happen, things slip through. And basically when you look at other people talking about how their car is, most people, especially most Model Ys, they aren't like that. Most of the other Model Ys, even now, they're built right now, just what, 4 or 5 months after their initial production, they are actually built really well. Like they're really well built. They're They don't really have many quality control problems. They don't really have many panel gaps. Obviously, they don't really have much of the same problems. Now, obviously, we do see some here and there. It's not like they just don't exist anymore. Not like Tesla's perfect now, for example. But they're in such a low quantity. Tesla has fixed majority of their problems already, and that's just 3 or 4 months after the initial build of their Model Ys. And because of that, people still to this day believe that you shouldn't buy a Tesla because they're just built terribly, which isn't actually true. Whatever you see in the front, or whatever you see on the actual panels, or whatever, basically whatever you see at the car in front of you, that doesn't actually correlate to how the car is built underneath the skin. Like I said, underneath the skin, they're built like tanks. They have the best manufacturing practices, and basically they use the best materials and the most redundant materials, and basically to try to get whatever they can and just make it the best they can have. The only issue they fall apart on is quality control, and it doesn't help that Tesla service is just not as good. So I'm not defending Tesla on this and saying that, oh, it's fine for a $60,000 car to have these defects. What I am defending is the perception that the media portrays in front of you to actually say that all cars are bad, which is not true. Only a few select number of cars are bad. Now, does that mean you should just go right ahead and not worry about anything? No, you should actually look for it, and maybe if you do find that the defects are so big, decline the delivery. By all means, go for it, do it. It's better for yourself, because then you won't actually have to go into the Tesla service and actually make those appointments if you can wait a bit longer to get a better Model Y, for example. But most other cars, like the Model S, 3, and X, which have been in production for multiple years now, those cars are pretty much grandfathered in that they're just built really well. Now, most of those problems don't actually exist. They're just on the newest model, which is the Model Y, and Tesla's doing an incredible job fixing them really quickly. Like just recently, the best example I can actually give is the rear seat. The very early models, the very early VINs, they actually had a rear seat alignment, like, you know, the 60-40 split. So basically the single seat on the right side was actually misaligned to the two seats on the other side. And basically what Tesla did was replace the seats in the service center, of course, but they also fixed that in the factory themselves. So if you get a Model Y that was actually built maybe 4 months later, now you would actually have a car that is built better and actually has the proper seats and doesn't need another service appointment for that issue to be resolved. And obviously Tesla's working around the clock to actually fix these issues, but they sometimes slip through. And basically what I'm just suggesting is, if you can, wait. But that does not mean that you should just not buy a Tesla and just assume that all Teslas are bad, which is not actually the case. It's just the fact that the early models, the very early models, and by the way, Tesla's a brand new company, so they are actually fixing these issues as they come, and they're learning more about manufacturing, so obviously they'll improve. They don't have 80 years of experience behind them to actually fix all their issues. They've really only been mass producing cars for like the later half of this decade, really. Literally the late half of this decade, the past 5 years or so. So they really have a lot of catching up to do, but they're doing an incredible job at their pace of innovation. So if you really want like a perfect Tesla, I feel like that is not going to exist ever. But what it is going to exist is a Tesla that, even if it does have any minor defect, it's going to be so minor that the car is going to be so good that you're not really going to care about it too much. And for that, I say the car is already good to this day, and most Model Y owners today are even happy. Like, you see them out on the road today. If you can find one out on the road, do a visual inspection. Just look around, see if you see any panel gaps, and I'll probably guarantee that most panel gaps aren't going to be visible just by looking at it for the first time. You have to actually take like those tools and probably measure it out or something. So Tesla is improving a lot with whatever it's doing. So what I would suggest, do not wait if you need a car, but if you don't need one and you can actually hold off and wait just a bit, maybe do that. But again, there's no really wrong time to buy a Tesla unless it's just when the car came out and you're buying it like literally a month later. So maybe that's like the only worst time to buy a car. But other than that, it's an amazing car to buy. Highly suggest you buy one. And I have my referral link down below. You'll get about 1,500 kilometers of free supercharging, 1,000 miles of free supercharging, something like that. So yeah, if you want that, My referral link is down below. If you want to use someone else's, go ahead. I don't really care about it, so go ahead, use someone else's. Hope you got something out of it, and let me know if you bought a Model Y or anything, how has your experience been with the quality control that Tesla has? Maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe your car is just absolutely perfect, or you have tons of problems. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll talk to you in the next one. All right, peace.